Hello and welcome back to the HIVRNAtestguide.com YouTube channel, your trusted source for HIV testing with over 4,500 HIV testing labs across the United States. For more information, check the link in the description of this video or the bio section of our channel.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up a research story that really represents what is perhaps the single most monumental shift in how we approach HIV since the 1990s.
It really is. We're not talking about just a small step forward here.
No, this is not incremental progress. This is a genuine paradigm shift. We are talking about moving beyond the goal of just, suppressing the virus. We're talking about the possibility of controlling HIV.
And controlling it without a lifetime of daily medication.
Exactly, by essentially reprogramming your own body to fight the virus long term.
It's a truly critical moment, and I think it's one that gives the entire field immense hope. For the last 30 years, the winning strategy has been pharmacological control.
Right, using powerful drugs to force the virus into submission.
Into submission, day in and day out. Now, thanks to this UCSF trial we're going to break down, we're actually talking about training the human immune system to take over that job, to assume full, lasting control.
Allowing a person to potentially walk away from daily medication permanently.
That's the dream.
And when we talk about the potential impact of this, the scale is it's staggering. I think we need to start this discussion by grounding ourselves in the reality of the HIV epidemic today.
Absolutely.
This is a disease that affects around 40 million people around the world.
40 million people. And their lives are, in a very real way, tethered to a daily regimen. And, while antiretroviral therapy, or RT, it's miraculous, we can't just gloss over what that really means.
What adherence means for 40 million individuals day after day for decades.
Yes. You're talking about daily logistics, remembering the pill. You're talking about maintaining a cold chain for some of these medicines in resource-poor areas. You're dealing with lifelong side effects that, while managed, they still exist.
And the social burden, the stigma.
A huge part of it. The stigma associated with needing that medication every single day. So the goal of an RT-free life, it's not just medical. It addresses all of it, the medical, the logistical, and the social challenges all at once.
So let's establish that baseline. We talk about the art revolution starting in the 1990s. And when RT was introduced, it was perhaps the single greatest accomplishment in modern infectious disease history.
It's hard to overstate it.
It transformed what was, for all intents and purposes, a death sentence.
It absolutely would.
Into a manageable, chronic disease. People with HIV could suddenly live long, healthy lives. But as you said, that came with a huge caveat: strict 100% adherence.
That's the contract. And RT is phenomenal at its job, which is stopping the replication of the active virus in the bloodstream. It pushes the viral load down to virtually undetectable levels.
Which also means the virus can't be transmitted to others, a huge public health win.
A massive win. But, and this is the challenge that costs billions of dollars and occupies thousands of researchers, why isn't ART a cure?
That distinction is so critical, and it brings us directly to the concept of viral latency.
Exactly. Latency is the fortress we've been trying to breach for decades. See, RT is brilliant at tackling the active virus, the virus that's out in the open, circulating and replicating.
But it doesn't eliminate the viral reservoirs.
You can't even see them.
Could you maybe define those reservoirs for you, the listener? Where exactly is the virus hiding, and why can't the drugs find it?
So think of a reservoir as a deep hideout. When HIV first infects a T cell, which is a crucial part of your immune system, it does something very clever. It inserts its own DNA into the host cell's genome.
It literally merges its own instruction manual with the human cell's instructions.
Precisely. Now, most of these infected T cells will start actively churning out new virus particles, and that's what RT immediately shuts down. But a tiny, tiny fraction of these infected cells do something different. They go into a resting or dormant state.
They become those sleeper agents you mentioned?
The perfect analogy. They're resting T cells, usually what we call memory T cells, and their job is to remember past infections. When they're in this resting state, they're metabolically inactive. They're just waiting.
And because RT works by jamming the virus's replication machinery.
If the virus isn't replicating, the drug has nothing to jam. It's effectively invisible. And these reservoirs, they're often located in parts of the body that are hard to reach, places like the gut, the lymph nodes, the bone marrow, even the central nervous system. These are the strongholds that RT simply cannot touch.
So at the moment that drug pressure, that daily pill is removed, Those dormant cells are eventually activated, they wake up, and they start producing the virus all over again.
And that's the rebound. That's the mechanism of inevitable failure if you stop treatment. The virus stays in the body, ready to reawaken. And the moment RT is stopped, the hidden virus activates, it replicates wildly, and the patient's viral load just skyrockets.
Putting their health at risk and creating the risk of transmission once again.
Yes. So the ultimate challenge, and really the mission of this deep dive, is to understand how this new study tries to solve this latency problem by achieving what the researchers call art-free HIV functional control.
Okay, let's unpack that specific term, functional control, because this is where the terminology is so important. We often hear the word cure, but in HIV research, there are generally two kinds of cures being discussed, right?
Yes, and it's a really important clarification. When we talk about curing HIV, we're usually talking about two very different outcomes.
The first one is the sterilizing cure.
A sterilizing cure. This is, the holy grail. It means the complete and total eradication of every single HIV-infected cell, every last piece of viral DNA from the body. The virus is 100% gone.
Has it ever happened?
It has, but only in a handful of documented cases worldwide.
Yeah.
People like the Berlin patient or the London patient. And it was achieved through highly aggressive and incredibly risky bone marrow transplants for cancer.
So not something you can roll out to 40 million people.
Not at all. It's effective, but it's far too dangerous and complex for the global population. It's a proof of principle, not a scalable solution.
Which brings us to the second goal, and the one this UCSF study is chasing, the functional cure, or this art-free functional control.
This is the practical and I think achievable goal. A functional cure means the viral reservoir still exists, but the immune system has been reprogrammed so effectively that it can permanently manage and suppress the virus on its own.
Without the daily medication.
Exactly. The viral load is kept low, often below the level of detection, or maybe slightly higher, but still controlled indefinitely. It means your body can control the virus just as effectively as the pills used to. That is the monumental shift in thinking.
And that is our mission today. To understand this specific UCSF study that has made functional control seem biologically viable for the first time in a meaningful way.
Right, so we are focusing on this particular piece of research that came out of UC San Francisco.
Yeah.
UCSF is, it's really the epicenter of AIDS research, especially when it comes to latency and long-term survivors.
And the context of the publication itself is vital here. These results didn't just appear anywhere. They were published on December 1st, World AIDS Day, in the journal Nature.
Which is about as prestigious as it gets in science.
That timing and that journal placement, it's a huge signal.
Yeah.
It immediately tells you this is not just some modest lab finding. This is a major scientific announcement, and it was strategically timed for a day dedicated to the global fight against the epidemic.
It absolutely underscores the magnitude of the finding. And something that often gets lost in these big headlines is the sheer scale of the collaboration required.
You mean to actually run the trial?
Yes. To pull off a trial testing a complex triple combination regimen, you've got a vaccine, then 2 different rounds of antibodies. That requires a massive effort. The source material highlights that this involved nearly a dozen pharmaceutical companies and other crucial partners in HIV research.
No single university or academic center could do this alone.
No way. It just speaks to the complexity of the tools they were using, developing and supplying these novel therapeutic vaccines and these very specialized antibody cocktails. It's incredibly expensive and logistically a nightmare.
Which brings us to the funding.
Right, the critical funding component.
Right.
This research, aimed specifically at finding a cure, was made possible by a major grant from the Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR. It was a $20 million 5-year partnership with UCSF.
And that was launched way back in 2015.
Exactly, with the express purpose of advancing AIDS cure research. We should also, of course, note the essential support from the National Institutes of Health, NIH. This wasn't just random funding. The investment was highly targeted. Researchers knew they needed a complex, multi-pronged strategy to get at latency, and complex strategies need serious money.
Okay, so let's pivot to the proof of concept itself, because while the headlines are, as you say, monumental, the study size requires us to be cautious.
This is the essential caveat, and it's one the researchers themselves are very open about. This was a small trial. The really exciting result that we're discussing came from an analysis of just 10 participants.
10. So this is not a final phase 3 ready for primetime trial.
Not even close. And crucially, the investigators are very clear that the study did not include a control arm. What does that mean for you, the listener?
A control arm would be a group that didn't get the treatment, right, for comparison.
Exactly. A control arm would be a group of participants who also stopped RT, but who did not receive this experimental triple combination therapy. Standard science would typically demand that comparison to definitively prove the treatment caused the outcome.
But they didn't do that here. Why not?
Well, because the standard expectation for any person stopping RT is essentially 100% rebound. We know what happens. So the UCSF researchers were comfortable launching this as a proof of concept. Their goal wasn't to compare it to a no-treatment group, because we already know that fails.
Their goal was just to prove that the mechanism itself, that this combination immunotherapy could work, that it was possible to break that 100% rebound cycle.
Precisely. And that's what makes the results so thrilling, even with the small sample size. Let's revisit that core finding. This is a quote from the co-senior author, Stephen Deeks. The majority had some evidence of control, which we believe is unprecedented.
Unprecedented. That's a strong word in science.
It is. And when you look at the numbers, you understand why he used it. They found that 7 out of 10 participants, that's a 70% success rate in this small group, were able to keep the virus at very low levels for many, many months after going off RT.
So think about that. You go from a situation where the success rate for stopping RT and staying controlled is 0% to a 70% success rate in this cohort. Moving from 0 to 70, even in a small group, it just fundamentally changes what seems possible for the future of this field.
Absolutely. 0 to 70. That is the leap that has everyone paying very close attention. So now we have to dive deep into the how. This wasn't just a single shot. It was a highly orchestrated 3-part strategy.
Specifically designed to create that state of functional control.
It was a strategy designed to test whether a triple combination of immunotherapies could successfully reprogram the body's immune system. And this gets into some really fascinating biology, because they weren't just treating a symptom. They were trying to change the immune system's long-term memory and its vigilance.
Before we break down the 3 steps of the treatment, there's a really critical prerequisite about the participants themselves that the study noted. Most of them had started RT very soon after they acquired HIV. Why is that so important?
This is a crucial point, and it might dictate who the therapy like this could initially help. When HIV first infects the body, it causes this massive systemic inflammatory reaction, and it immediately starts destroying T cells.
The very cells that are supposed to fight it.
The very cells. Now, if a person goes years without treatment, their immune system becomes severely damaged. We often use the term T cell exhaustion. The T cells that are left are they're worn out, they're inefficient, they struggle to multiply.
So they're too weary to put up a good fight, even if you try to stimulate them with something like a vaccine.
That's it exactly. But if you start RT very early, say within weeks or months of infection, you interrupt that entire destructive cycle before it takes hold. Early ART helps to preserve the quality and the quantity of their T cells.
Their immune system stays more intact.
More intact, more plastic,
right,
more trainable. And this preserved immune response seems to be a crucial prerequisite for the kind of T cell priming that this triple combination therapy is trying to achieve.
So the better the raw materials you start with, the T cells, the better your chances of building a strong defense force later on.
That's a perfect way to put it. You can't effectively train a tired, broken army. You need a preserved, motivated core to build upon.
Which makes perfect sense. Okay, let's break down the triple combination into its 3 strategic parts, starting with step 1, which the outline calls the wake-up call.
Right. Step 1 involved a therapeutic vaccine. And we have to immediately distinguish this from the preventative vaccines you hear about, like for measles or COVID.
Those are meant to stop you from ever getting infected.
Correct. This therapeutic vaccine is given to someone who already has HIV.
So what's its job? What was this vaccine actually doing inside their bodies?
Its purpose was really twofold. First, it introduces carefully selected pieces of HIV, what we call antigens or protein targets, back into the system. This serves to remind the T cells what the enemy looks like. It's like showing a photograph to a guard dog.
Resensitizing the army.
Yes. And second, it uses special ingredients called adjuvants to just generally boost the immune response. So the goal isn't just to get the T cells to recognize the virus, but to encourage them, specifically the cytotoxic T lymphocytes or CTLs, the killer cells, to multiply and go on the hunt for that latent HIV hiding in the body.
So you're shining a spotlight deep into those reservoirs and shouting, hey, look, this is the enemy you've kind of gotten used to.
Exactly. This is the enemy you forgot about because RT was doing all the work. It's a re-education program for the immune system.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we move to step 2, the initial knockdown. which utilized a very specialized component.
Step 2 involved giving the participants an antibody cocktail. And specifically, these were broadly neutralizing antibodies, or BNAbs. This is a powerful form of what we call passive immunity.
Broadly neutralizing antibodies, that sounds highly technical. Can you simplify their role for us?
Absolutely. So antibodies are proteins your immune system naturally makes to tag or neutralize invaders. The huge challenge with HIV is that it mutates incredibly fast, so standard antibodies can't keep up. It's always changing its code.
It's a master of disguise.
It is. But BNAbs are a specially discovered, and in some cases engineered, class of antibodies that can recognize parts of the virus that don't change. So they can neutralize a huge variety of different HIV strains, even those that have mutated a lot. They are powerful, comprehensive neutralizers.
And what was their specific purpose in this three-step strategy? Were they also waking up the immune system?
No, their purpose was more direct and immediate. It was to drastically reduce the amount of existing, actively circulating HIV in the body. Any virus that might escape that initial T-cell response from the vaccine. So while the vaccine was busy training the T-cells to hunt down the hidden latent virus,
The BNAbs were acting as the cleanup crew.
the cleanup crew, mopping up debris, neutralizing any free-floating virus. They knock the overall viral load down as far as humanly possible, which effectively shrinks the battlefield right before you take away the RT safety net.
So we have the vaccine priming the killer T cells, and we have the BNAbs suppressing the active virus and clearing the way. It's a very comprehensive attack. And then we get to step 3, the final transition phase.
Step 3 was the crucial moment, right before they stopped the daily pills in what's called an analytical treatment interruption, or ATI. They were given another round of anti-HIV antibodies
Why a second round?
to reinforce the knockdown from step 2. The timing here is just. It's meticulously synchronized. The vaccine has done its priming work. The first round of BNAbs has cleared out the initial active virus. This second round is like a final assurance, minimizing any potential for rebound from active virus just as the AirTay is being withdrawn.
So it's not like they just stopped the pills cold turkey. It was a highly targeted 3-part process, all designed to transition the body from pharmacological control to full immunological control.
It's like they were building a bridge of immune readiness. They were ensuring the T-cells were mobilized and ready to go, and that the amount of circulating virus was at an absolute minimum right at the moment the safety net of the drugs disappeared.
That analogy of a bridge is excellent. They weren't just stopping the pills, they were actively replacing the function of the pills with the newly reprogrammed immune system, making sure those T cells were on high alert, ready to start their patrol.
And that leads us directly to the analysis of the rebound results. This is where we see if that bridge actually held up. And to understand the results, we have to contrast them with the absolute expectation, the standard rebound profile.
And the standard expectation is not good.
It's a near certainty of failure. For someone with HIV who is perfectly adherent to ART, their viral load is typically undetectable. That usually means less than 20 copies of the virus per milliliter of blood. If they stop taking their medicine, the rebound is rapid, it's predictable, and it's catastrophic from a virological standpoint.
What's the typical timeline on that? And what does skyrocketing actually look like in terms of the numbers?
The virus typically starts to be detectable again within about 2 weeks, sometimes as early as 10 days. And the viral load doesn't just reappear at a low level, it skyrockets. We're talking about it going from undetectable to viral loads well above 50,000 copies per milliliter, and in many cases exceeding 100,000 copies within just a month.
And that rapid exponential growth is what starts destroying the T cells again.
Precisely. It puts the patient's health at high risk.
Yeah.
That is the universal expected outcome when RT is stopped, period.
Now, let's contrast that near-universal failure with what actually happened in the UCSF trial's 10 participants who went through this whole regimen.
The contrast is the whole story here. Out of the 10 patients who stopped their RT, only 3 of them experienced that typical rapid rebound. Their immune systems were, for whatever reason, not successfully reprogrammed. They hit those sky-high viral loads, and they had to immediately go back on their RT.
But that means 70%. 7 people avoided that standard inevitable failure.
70%.
And what happened to those remaining 7, the success stories?
Well, 6 of the participants maintained low levels of the virus for many months. This is the very definition of functional control. And what's crucial is that their viral load did increase a bit. The virus was emerging from the reservoirs, but their reprogrammed T cells managed to contain the replication before it could spiral out of control.
So they didn't stay undetectable, but they stayed controlled.
Exactly. They stayed below high-risk levels. often keeping their viral loads below 1,000 copies, sometimes even below 500 for a long time.
But what about that seventh person, the single most remarkable finding?
One participant did not rebound at all during the observation period. Their viral load remained undetectable. Now, we have to add the caveat that the observation period eventually ends, and we need long-term data on durability. But the fact that one person's immune system handled that transition flawlessly, that's incredibly powerful.
So, the core finding is that 70% of this small group achieved functional control for an extended period. This means the goal wasn't to eliminate the virus entirely. It was to teach the body's surveillance system to police the emerging virus instantly and aggressively.
Yes, we shifted the challenge from a pharmaceutical one requiring a daily pill to an immunological one. We proved that it's possible to prime the T cells to act as these rapid response units. But this begs the essential question.
How?
How did the 7 controllers do it? What separated them, biologically, from the 3 who failed?
Let's get into that biological data. The researchers obviously examined the immune responses of the 7 who controlled the virus to figure out the mechanism of success.
They did. The investigation really zeroed in on the difference in their immune responses. And the key was the activity of their T cells, specifically their CD8 plus cytotoxic T lymphocytes. These are the soldiers of the immune system responsible for identifying and killing infected cells.
And what did they notice about the T cells of the controllers, specifically when they encountered the virus that was starting to emerge?
In the controllers, the T cells were able to expand dramatically as soon as they encountered the rebounding virus. This wasn't a sluggish, sleepy response. It was an explosive, massive counterattack.
So when the latent virus finally peaked out after RT was stopped, the T cells in the successful group didn't hesitate. They multiplied rapidly to overwhelm the threat.
That's it. This brings us to that fantastic analogy provided by the co-senior author Rachel Rudishauser. She called it the pouncing cat analogy, and it's just a perfect visual to explain T-cell vigilance.
I love a good analogy. Break it down for us.
She described the T-cells in the controllers as hanging out waiting for their target, kind of like a cat getting ready to pounce on a mouse. In immunological terms, this means 2 things: surveillance and readiness.
Okay, let's start with surveillance. In a typical patient, or in the 3 participants who failed, when the latent virus emerges, the T cells might recognize it. But they're often still suffering from that T cell exhaustion we talked about.
Correct. The T cells in an exhausted state are like a tired old cat that sees the mouse but decides it's just too much effort to get up and pounce. It might eventually react, but by then,
The mouse has had babies.
the mouse has already multiplied into dozens of mice, and the viral load has skyrocketed. The immune system is completely overwhelmed by the sheer exponential growth rate of the virus. It's too little, too late.
So what did the triple immunotherapy, the vaccine, and the BNAbs do to turn that tired cat into a pouncing cat?
It did 2 things. It reversed the exhaustion, and it created a potent immunological memory. The therapeutic vaccine specifically trained the memory T cells to recognize the widest possible range of viral proteins, so they knew exactly what to look for.
And the BNAbs?
The BNAbs cleared out all that active virus, which drastically reduces the chronic inflammatory burden on the body. And that's key to reversing T-cell exhaustion. By reducing all that ambient noise of chronic infection, the T cells were finally able to rest and rearm themselves.
So when the virus finally poked its head out after the RT stopped, the memory T cells in those 7 controllers were like a coiled spring.
They weren't just ready, they were positioned and primed to expand immediately. And that dramatic expansion, going from a small surveillance force to a massive killer cell army in a matter of days, that is the biological success story.
And that's what prevented the exponential growth, the skyrocketing viral load that we see in the rebounders.
The T cells pounced. They contained the virus. And they kept the viral replication under control for months. That's sustained vigilance. That is the core of functional control.
This proves that the goal of teaching the body to police itself against latent HIV it's scientifically reciprocal, but it requires this incredibly complex, synchronized strategy of priming, clearing, and reinforcing.
And this is where we have to introduce some healthy skepticism and talk about the road ahead, because as groundbreaking as this all is, the investigators themselves were very clear. The first author, Michael Peluso, said, "This is not the end game."
Right. So what are the necessary next steps? What are the major hurdles before a strategy like this could ever hope to replace standard daily RT?
There are 2 monumental hurdles, really. One is logistical, and one is scientific. Logistically, the treatment would need to be simplified dramatically.
I mean, just think about the regimen you described.
Exactly. A therapeutic vaccine, which requires multiple clinic visits, then 2 separate rounds of IV-infused antibody cocktails. These BNABs are incredibly complex and expensive to manufacture and deliver.
Especially in parts of the world with limited medical infrastructure. This isn't a single shot or a simple pill. It's an involved, expensive therapeutic process.
It is. So researchers have to figure out which component of this triple combination is the non-negotiable factor. Is the vaccine doing all the heavy lifting? Are the BNABs just making the environment better for the vaccine to work? They need to simplify this down to, ideally, a single, less intensive treatment that can still achieve the same level of T-cell priming.
And one that is globally accessible and affordable. That feels like the biggest practical challenge.
It's huge. And the second major hurdle is about scale and scientific rigor.
Proving it works in more than just 10 people.
It needs to be proved effective in much larger studies. We need large, multi-center, randomized controlled trials. These trials have to confirm that 70% success rate across diverse populations, different genetics, different parts of the world.
And critically, they have to ensure that this functional control is durable.
Yes, durability is everything. If the T cells maintain control for 6 months, that's fantastic. It's a huge step forward. But if the patient has to go back on RAT 6 months later, it's not a true functional cure. We need control that lasts for years, maybe even decades.
And that question of durability brings us right back to our pouncing cat analogy. If the success relies on these potent memory T cells, how do we make sure that memory stays robust over a whole lifespan? Especially since the virus is still technically there, hiding in the reservoirs. That is the million-dollar question for the field right now. Immune system durability. We know memory P cells can be very long-lived, but we don't know if their residual low-level replication of the virus in these controllers will eventually lead to the reemergence of T-cell exhaustion years down the line.
Well, does the cat get tired again?
Does the cat get tired again after a decade of continuous low-level hunting? We need longitudinal data. We need to follow these patients for years to see. That potential for future exhaustion means the long-term monitoring is absolutely essential.
Beyond the practical concerns of scale and simplification, there's also the philosophical implication that Dr. Peluso mentioned. This study validates the idea that we can push progress on a challenge we often frame as unsolvable.
For so long, that latency reservoir was seen as this impenetrable fortress, and it led to a kind of a fatalistic approach in some corners of the research world. This study just flips that on its head.
It says the fortress doesn't have to be destroyed if you can just post a permanent, effective guard.
A permanent internal guard. It proves that by focusing our resources on training the body to manage that fortress from within, rather than trying to chemically blast every single latent cell, which seems almost impossible, we have a viable path forward. It provides a massive psychological boost and really redirects cure-focused research towards immunotherapy.
And let's return to that critical detail about early ART initiation preserving the immune system. That seems to be such a foundational piece of this puzzle. Does this imply that this whole immunotherapy approach might not work for the millions of people who were diagnosed late?
That is the central ethical and scientific insight to carry forward from this.
People who started treatment only after significant immune damage had already occurred.
I think that's a very real possibility. If functional control relies on the T cells being able to expand dramatically, then those with long-standing untreated HIV, whose T cells are fundamentally exhausted, they may not be eligible for this specific approach as it stands today.
So what's the next step for that population?
Well, future research will have to determine if we can develop adjunct therapies. Maybe things like checkpoint inhibitors, which are used in cancer immunotherapy, to specifically reverse T-cell exhaustion before we even introduce the vaccine and the antibody regimen.
So you'd have a pre-treatment to fix the immune system and then the treatment to train it.
Exactly. So we have this dual imperative now. One, simplify the regimen for global access for those who are eligible. And two, develop these pre-treatment strategies to repair the immune system for those who initiated RT late. It just deepens the meaning of unsolvable, even as we're celebrating this incredible breakthrough.
It does. It contextualizes it. The UCSF trial shows us the destination is reachable, but maybe only for a specific cohort who started RT early. The new challenge is finding other biological routes to get the rest of the 40 million people on that same journey.
Well said.
So we've covered the history, the necessity of moving beyond ART, the specifics of this incredible UCSF trial, that 70% success rate, the three-part strategy, and the amazing pouncing cat mechanism of the T cells and their dramatic expansion. It's an incredible story.
It truly is. It's a testament to sticking with a problem that seemed intractable for a very long time.
Okay, let's wrap up this deep dive with a final summary of the significance of this work.
I think, in short, a highly complex triple combination immunotherapy successfully prompted the body's preserved T cells, our pouncing cats, to control HIV without daily medication in 70% of a small cohort for many months. It fundamentally changes the conversation from lifelong suppression to self-sustained immunological control.
It proves the functional cure is possible.
It proves it is biologically possible.
And the overarching goal, it remains the same. Developing a therapy that may allow people to live a healthy life without the need of lifelong medications. This UCSF trial has shown us that goal isn't just a dream anymore. It's a viable, scientifically proven possibility, even if it's currently very, very logistically complex.
And this leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to consider. And it really circles back to this core challenge of chronic infection. Since the mechanism of success relies so heavily on the ability of T cells to dramatically expand and maintain their vigilance, and given the complexity of this initial triple regimen, how will future research manage to reduce this to a simpler, globally deployable therapeutic while still guaranteeing that the reprogrammed T cells, the pouncing cats, maintain that readiness and prevent exhaustion for the rest of a patient's natural life?
The challenge isn't just simplifying the treatment, it's simplifying the efficacy without sacrificing the durability.
That's it. How do you make it simpler, but just as tough and just as long-lasting?
A challenge that requires thinking about immune system durability over decades, not just a few months. Thank you for helping us navigate this complex but profoundly hopeful breakthrough.
My pleasure, thank you.
And thank you, the listener, for taking this deep dive with us into the search for an RT-free future. We'll see you next time.